UFC 320, the rematch between Pereira versus Ankalaev, which takes place on the 4th of October. This is a video about why, in my opinion, I think Alex Pereira needs to beat Magomed Ankalaev. Not just for his own legacy, but for the light heavyweight division. I'm better now, I'm not ill anymore, so now I don't sound like Stephen Hawking on crack. So in the first fight between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev, Alex Pereira wasn't really able to get his shots off like he normally does because there was the threat of the takedown. And you see this all across the UFC, every division, when there's a superior wrestler versus a superior striker. The striker really struggles to get their shots off because there's that constant threat of, am I going to get taken down? Am I going to get taken down? Oh, no. And then that also allows the wrestler to incorporate their own striking in a better way because the striker isn't able to get their shots off like they normally would. Then the wrestler can start doing more striking and actually do quite well. And that is, in my opinion, what happened in their first fight. Pereira wasn't able to get his shots off at the threat of the takedown. You know, the Dagestanis are very, very good at wrestling. It's their bread and butter. And in my opinion, Alex Pereira needs to be able to get through that, I don't even know how you put it, get through that mental block of worrying about the takedown if he's going to do well in this fight. Like I said, it's very common. We saw it very clearly against McGregor and Khabib. You know, McGregor wasn't able to get his shots off in the way that he normally would because he was so worried about being taken down by Khabib, which you can't blame him. I mean, no one wants to get taken down by Khabib. But yeah, this is a recurring thing. I guess in this video, I'm going to talk about why Alex Pereira needs to win this fight. Not just for his own legacy, but for the for the light heavyweight division, my bad, to stay interesting and to keep fans engaged and excited for different fights. Let's talk about how active Alex Pereira was a year or two ago. He was very active, fighting 3 to 4 times a year. However, Ankalaev hasn't really been as active of a fighter. Whether that's his fault or the UFC, I'm not going to comment on that, but looking at the statistics and how many times each one of them fought, Pereira has definitely been more of an active champion or an active fighter in general. Ankalaev has a finish rate of around 73%, which is pretty good, whereas Pereira, 83%. Alex Pereira is clearly the better finisher out of the two. Let's talk about Ankalaev's inactivity, shall we say. Ankalaev, he only had 2 fights in 2022, 1 fight in 2023, and 2 fights in 2024. Whereas we compare that to Pereira's record, shall we? Pereira had 3 fights in 2022, 3 fights in 2023, and 3 fights in 2024. And you can clearly see, it's clear as day here, that Pereira has been a much more active champion. So Pereira's had 9 fights in the space of 2 years, and Ankalaev has had 5. So Ankalaev has had 5 fights in 2-3 years, and Pereira's had 9. And recently there's actually been some beef between the two. There was an altercation at the UFC PI, or the Performance Institute, and it was kind of awkward because neither of them spoke each other's language, and they had to have another translator there to translate not just from Russian to Portuguese and Portuguese to Russian, but then they'd have to also translate it to English as well, so then the people who were watching the video would know what the bloody hell was going on. It was quite funny, yeah, because it was like an argument with a 5-10 second delay. Like, they would say something insulting to each other, and they would just sit there like, I don't know what he said. Do you know what I mean? It was a very delayed argument. It was quite weird. And yeah, Pereira is, I wouldn't say he's coming towards the end of his career, but that time is coming soon. He's 38 years old, and typically the heavyweights retire later because there's more of a focus on power. You know, power means so much more in the heavier weights because when you've got all that body weight, it only takes one shot. You know, as opposed to whether you weigh 65 kilo, 70 kilo, 155 pounds. Yeah, sure, you have power. Everyone has power pretty much. But the heavier weights have power, you know, and it only takes one shot to take the other opponent out. So Alex Pereira being 38 isn't as big of a deal as it would be if he was a lightweight or a welterweight. But even then, you know, Stipe was, how old was he? 43 or something when he fought John Jones, and he looked slow as shit, you know? And maybe that's because of the damage that he took in his career, but, you know, that time is coming for Pereira, where he's going to start losing speed, he's going to start losing reaction time, and he's going to start losing the will to fight. And if you talk about how Ankalaev wasn't as active in his UFC career as opposed to Alex Pereira. What the fans want and what the UFC wants more than anything is an active fucking championship. You know, the shit that we've seen over the last year or so with John Jones avoiding Tom Aspinall like the plague, it sent the whole heavyweight division into jeopardy, because what were they fighting for? You know, the championship wasn't up for grabs. You know, everyone was just fighting, but you know, what they're fighting for? They're trying to get the belt, right? And they couldn't get the belt because John Jones was pissing about trying to avoid the fucking heavyweight champion. Yeah, as you're supposed to do as a heavyweight champion. You're supposed to fight the guy in line. Enough said about that, though. I've made a video or two about that already. And if Ankalaev does win this fight, then it will be a bit of a shame, in my opinion. Not because Ankalaev is a bad fighter, but Alex Pereira he's just so entertaining, and he fights so regularly. He fights whenever he can, and Ankalaev, it doesn't seem like he really fights that much. The last thing that a division needs is an inactive champion. Pereira is known for his cold, stoic persona because it intimidates his opponents. You even had Yuri Prohaska in their rematch in the press conference saying, "Don't use your black magic this time." You know, it was a joke, it was a throwaway comment, but it just goes to show that this guy's aura is ridiculous. Like, to me, he reminds me of the Salamanca brothers from Breaking Bad. Very cold, very stoic, very like, "I'm going to kill you." Do you know what I mean? He's a scary guy, man. 6'5", 220 pounds. Like, Jesus Christ. And yeah, usually Pereira is a very stoic, cold opponent. He doesn't really talk much. He just lets his fists do the talking. Whereas this fight, he suddenly changed his act a little bit. This fight has brought out a completely different Pereira. Angrier, irritable, at Ankalaev's throat, and playing mind games with him, which in my opinion shows that the loss that Pereira received from Ankalaev has hit him hard. Having lost to someone and that plays on your mind, that can really give an advantage to the opponent, because fighting is pretty much 90% mental warfare anyway. You know, if you believe in your head that you're gonna win, you probably will win. But if you believe that you're not gonna win, if you're scared of your opponent, if you're worried that you're gonna lose again, you're worried about a specific part of their game that might get a better of you, it's going to be playing on your mind, and you're also not going to be able to perform at your best. The best mindset you want to be fighting with is a cold, calculated mindset. So you're able to relax, you're able to see the shots coming, you're able to read your opponent. Whereas if you're really worried, or you're scared, or you're angry, you're not really able to make calculated decisions. You're just based off of instinct. Oh, he moved. And then, you know, that could give your opponent a huge advantage. And like I said, this could hinder Pereira's performance because he isn't actually able to put his feelings aside to put on the best calculated performance in the octagon. Let's talk about the ages. So obviously we know that Alex Pereira is 38 years old, which means that he's coming towards the end of his career in the next few years. Perhaps that's why he's been fighting more often. It's been great, you know. Alex Pereira being the champion has been brilliant. It's been such an entertaining fighter. That fight against Khalil Roundtree, brilliant. That was an absolute war. And I just don't think we're going to get that with fucking Ankalaev being a champion. We're not going to get wars. He doesn't really seem like he's willing to really finish his opponents. He's willing to just coast. Yeah, sure, he's won a few times by TKO and KO. He's not as exciting of a fighter as Pereira. And to be honest, if that opinion makes me a casual, I don't really give a shit. I like watching exciting fights where you see that there is a high chance that someone's going to get their head smashed in. And with Ankalaev, I don't feel like that when I watch him. I do feel like that with Pereira. And obviously Ankalaev has the advantage in going into this fight, into this rematch, because he's already beaten Pereira once. So all he needs to do is do what he did before. Whereas Pereira, he's got to control his emotions. He's got to be wary of the takedown, but not be too wary to the point where he's going to be negatively affected in terms of striking and his overall performance. And yeah, I hope that Alex Pereira can pull this off because he is such an entertaining fighter and I love watching him fight. However, I think it is time for me to give my fight prediction for this fight. Who do I think is going to win, Ankalaev or Pereira? As much as I love Pereira, no homo, as much as I love watching him fight and He's a great fighter. He's so entertaining. And I want him to win. I really want him to win. I want him to get the comeback, get the fucking light heavyweight division moving. You know what I mean? Because we're not going to see Ankalaev getting 3 or 4 fights in a year. We're just not going to see that, unfortunately. And as much as I want Pereira to win this fight, I unfortunately think that Magomed Ankalaev is going to win this fight again. I think he's going to win by a majority decision. I believe that Alex Pereira will do a lot better than the first fight. I think that his striking will be a lot more consistent. I think he'll be throwing more shots. There will still be a wariness of the takedowns. I just can't really see Pereira winning this fight, unfortunately, because he's got himself so wound up in the altercations between him and Ankalaev recently. I just can't really see him winning, unfortunately. And I'd love to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, but I just can't see it. I think that Ankalaev's going to win this fight by a majority decision, and it will be a good fight, but I think Ankalaev will probably win. I hope I'm wrong, you know, I really do hope I'm wrong, but guess we'll see on October the 4th. So, do you guys agree with my takes here? Do you disagree with anything I've said? Please leave it in the comment section if you do. I'm more than open to reading people's different opinions and be proven wrong. You know, we'll see on the night what happens. So yeah, let me know what you guys think is going to happen in this fight in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and turn the bell notifications on so you get notified every single time I post a new video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Shama.